Hello everyone, I'm Santiago and today I'm gonna be testing the new STALKER enhanced editions for Call of Prypiat, Clear Sky and Shadow of Chernobyl. So why am I testing this? Well, out of the blue, 2 days before release I said, hey, we're getting enhanced versions of these, and if you own the originals on Steam like I do, you're going to get the enhanced edition of each of them for free. So I happen to own the 3 of them, so that wasn't an issue. But I'm happy that you don't have to rebuy everything, it's just included as a free update, as a separate game. If you buy the enhanced editions though, it basically gives you the original at the same time, so keep that in mind. And no matter if you buy the game right now or not, you get both versions, the enhanced version and the original from back then. So what are the differences apart from better graphics? Well, it's the same engine, you got Steam Workshop support and controller support, which for the Steam Deck I think is a big deal. But what about performance? They have mixed reviews, at least with the enhanced editions. I want to thank the sponsor Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is a website where you can buy games for PC, PlayStation, Xbox and Nintendo Switch for a lower price. They have 24/7 support and they have the latest games and older games as well. There's CryoUtilities Expedition 33 for $32. You can also find older titles like Dead Space Remake for $18.83, Hunt Showdown and Green Hell. And the games we're playing today are also there, but they got out of stock, but they are super cheap. Again, if you activate these ones, you're going to get the enhanced edition anyway, so highly recommend you get them for this price once they are back in stock. And due to this partnership, we're going to be giving away 1 game each month to you guys for the people in the community. So make sure to hit participate, follow myself and Instant Gaming on social media. And if you win, you'll get a game of your choice from Instant Gaming. The last winner 21 days ago was Spibet and he chose Assassin's Creed Shadows. So thanks again to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Let's continue. Alright, so we start with Shadow of Chernobyl, the enhanced edition, 800p, yeah, medium settings. And on the advanced options, something like this basically. My issue with these enhanced versions is the anti-aliasing. It's pretty poor when it comes to the edges, feels like a smeary mess, like a bad implemented TAA. So all this like this. And FSR quality, yeah. FSR with the maximum sharpness. The main improvement, at least for me, is when I'm using a controller. It has controller prompts, it controls perfectly fine like a newer game when it comes to controller support. And I'd say that's the biggest advantage of this one over the original, but we're going to play the original after this one. Graphics are better, but my issue is those edges. Those edges are very soft. And well, I had to sacrifice shadow quality, draw distance, but at least there is reflections. Something like that, you get worse draw distance than you would expect in a remaster. But again, you at least maintain 60s. This is the very beginning of the game, again.
Just think about it, man.
It's funny to see that after playing Stalker 2. Some things never change. But you need to use that and quality FSR, but honestly without FSR it's still not looking sharp when it comes to the edges. It's pretty damn disappointing. So those are my thoughts on the first game of the franchise, the enhanced edition. Very soft edges, and as people were saying in the reviews, they cut a lot of the Soviet stuff out of it. As you know, this game studio is based on Ukraine, so yeah, I understand why they would cut that, but at the same time, it just cuts content from the original game. So that's a shame in my opinion. It's different content at the end of the day. But the control support is nice. Here's the original game, the non-enhanced edition. This one, as you can see, worse graphics, a little bit more gritty when it comes to colors, and as you can probably see, it's very aliased. But even in the binoculars, I can see the text in the texture that wasn't there. I couldn't see it in the remaster, basically. But the disadvantage of this one, apart from the worse graphics, is that there's no controller support. By default, you got gyro and the trackpad to control it. But when it comes to menus and all that, it's kind of a pain because you're emulating a mouse. So in my opinion that sucks, but what can you do? is the original game. This game though has an advantage that has lots of mods, but installing the mods requires work. I mean, it's kind of like a Skyrim situation. If you end up modding the game as it's another game completely. But look at that frame rate, it's 100 and something FPS. So obviously performance is way better, but some of the decisions they took with the enhanced edition I really disagree with, especially again with the cut content I mentioned a moment ago. So yeah, uses way less resources, more battery life, but the user experience, UI, controller, lack of controller support, all that really makes it hard to recommend on Steam Deck, at least in my opinion. Nothing better than having native controller support over emulated mouse and keyboard. When it comes to STALKER Clear Sky, medium settings, very similar to before, but on the advanced options I basically did everything the same, but sun shadows should be turned off, at least in my opinion, with quality FSR once again. But if you look at it with these settings, you get something like this, drops below 60. So if you want sun shadows, maybe a 40 FPS cap, yeah, believe it or not. I could turn off the reflections, the directional shadows from the spotlights, but the sun shadows are the most demanding, even if I turn it off only for grass. And when it comes to the sun shadows, turn them off. And they'll give you a massive performance boost. It's the biggest difference, probably in all the games in the franchise. In the previous game, I didn't have this issue, but on this one, that works pretty well. But you lose that sun shadow that you should have on multiple objects. Sun shadows, I mean, it still looks good, but it loses a lot of depth because most of the things don't cast shadows. I tried basically everything, and it still had that drop below 60. So again, old engine, new features like those reflections, which is cool to see.
You can sometimes find artifacts and anomalies. You can't see them, but detectors spot them
So
easily
yeah,
enough. If you
let's see how the original game fares. So we're now in the original Clear Sky, maximum settings, enhance full dynamic lighting DX10. On the advanced options, you can use MSAA if you want to. It's a little bit intensive, believe it or not. I'm just going to lower the shadow quality a little bit and apply those changes. And inside the game itself, looking outside looks pretty good. Light shafts, all that. And then we look at some of this lighting over here and it drops into the 50s. Let's get outside very quick. But considering the age of the game, this was very advanced lighting. You can go for a lower quality lighting profile, but you basically lose even the water shading. It becomes like an unshaded surface. So on this one, you actually need to do the dynamic lighting off like we did before. So if you look here at the sun shadows, you can basically go to advanced, disable sun shadows, and after you do so, well, you get a massive performance increase, just like in the remaster, but you also lose quality in the water for some reason. So interesting, it carried over from here to the remaster. Okay, so now we're outside, and as you can see, it runs way better than the remaster obviously, but we don't have those screen space reflections, obviously. We got nice lighting. So if you turned off sun shadows right here, you lose most of the shadows that you can see, and without them the game looks obviously much worse than the remaster, without sun shadows especially. But then outside of those outposts, it seems to be running pretty well outside. Looking good, but if you want better performance in outposts, I'll disable the sun shadows. But keep in mind that this nice shine from the sun and those shadows will be missing. STALKER Call of Prypiat Enhanced Edition, medium settings like before, VSync is off, as you can see, FOV as default, advanced graphics, I didn't have to touch much on this one. I kept it as the medium preset, basically, with, I think I lowered these sliders a little bit. And then when it comes to FSR, also on quality. Again, our target here is 6 FPS, and on this one we start outside actually, which is pretty interesting. But I can see the softness of the image. I think it's pretty obvious. And also this one, my first Stalker game. Are you friendly?
The boss is over there. Go talk
Yeah.
to him.
Anyway, so as I was saying, this was the first Stalker that I tried on PC, and I didn't understand it, so I never got into it personally. But this was one of the first DX11 games that I ever played. That's probably why, despite the dynamic lighting and all that, seems to be performing better than the previous game. That was DX9 and DX10 with the advanced lighting. But as you can probably notice, there's also those nice screen space reflections, the softness of the image, a classic in new technology. You put FSR, upscalers, anti-AA, and you basically get that smudge image. That older games didn't have that issue, they had aliasing. I got somewhere else, and they tell me to get out. Yeah, right. I'm not staying out. Let's get shot to test performance.
Okay. Drop that retard.
I love the voice lines. But again, as a kid, the first time I played this, I never understood what it was about. I was like, hey, I'm landing shots and they're not falling down. Well, I didn't know what it was getting into. So yeah, this was my first DX11 game, basically. And despite the fight, it seems to be running pretty good. So let's jump into the original. Alright, so now we're in the original Call of Prypiat. As you can see, enhanced full dynamic lighting DX11. Remember to restart the game after doing those changes. In this case, I didn't put any anti-aliasing, but we can probably push it to 2x. Seems to be running better than the previous game. And these are basically the settings. Alright, so as you can probably notice, this runs significantly better than the previous game, at least with the Steam Deck and the full dynamic lighting. I'm pretty sure they just did a better optimized game than in the previous one. And I noticed when the game saves your progress, there's a spike in the frame time. That's pretty common in most games. But when it comes to performance, despite being on almost the highest settings, I can already notice that the draw distance of the foliage and the geometry is way worse, which again, to be expected. This is a way older game than the enhanced edition, despite being the same engine. And some stuff, yeah, some stuff doesn't load properly, I think. Oh no, never mind. But I get some micro stutters here and there. Let's lock the frame rate. Yeah, looking at the original, my only big problem with this one is the stuttering when I get to certain sections and the clearer, lower quality draw distance. But otherwise, it's the same game with worse FOV, better performance, and no controller support unless you use Steam input to emulate a mouse and keyboard, which is what most people were doing, because there are no mods to add controller support, as far as I remember. Believe me that I was going to do a video of the Stalker franchise on Steam Deck after playing Stalker 2, but just the lack of controller support is what destroyed my interest. So when they announced that they were going to have enhanced editions for this, older games, I was like, okay, I'll wait for those to make a video, and this is basically a draft of that video that I wanted to make. You can find Stalker 2 in the pinned comment for Steam Deck. I should revisit that one though, it got a lot of updates. But when it comes to this one, yeah, just the fact that we have that controller support and workshop support makes all the difference, at least in my opinion. But my biggest issue with this one, the original, in comparison to the newer one, apart from the lack of controller support, are those micro stutters that I'm getting.
Stalker, this place ain't for you.
So here we go again, same place.
Okay. Drop that retard.
So yeah, there it is. Interesting, the shooting of them casts shadows, the muzzle flashes cast shadows. That's super advanced for a game this old, holy hell. they were cooking. Alright, so as promised, I'm going to show you the difference between the newer one and the older one. What you're seeing on the middle of the screen right now is the remaster, basically on Steam Deck. As I said, it was super soft, and that's not an exaggeration. If you look at the older one, apart from the frame rate, you can still see the aliasing in the newer one, but the older one is so much sharper in comparison, and there's no way to get this older look without anti-aliasing. So even if I turn off anti-aliasing, there's no way to get the look of the original, at least when it comes to the edges. And that destroys image clarity. I can't even see some of the text over the radio over here. So if we look at them side by side, I think you can see my point. Even without upscaling, you cannot get this sharp look over... Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Now taking a look outside, this is the remaster, this is the original. Apart from the better graphics, obviously, the softness of the image is so... I mean, if you look at stuff into the distance, instead of being a blur, again, this is without upscaling, this is with everything turned off, you get something like this, and there's no way to fix that, even by disabling anti-aliasing altogether in the remaster. Just by looking at the binoculars, I think you can notice, I cannot even read mode and set. You lose a lot of image clarity. I think this is the most obvious difference. And now looking at them side by side, I think it's pretty obvious, especially in the binoculars, in stuff close to the camera and stuff very far away from the camera. So yeah, the draw distance, the lighting, definitely better in the newer one. The biggest sacrifice is image clarity and performance. So yeah, well, I love the new controller support on the enhanced edition, the workshop, all that. The sacrifice to image clarity, I think is pretty obvious, plus the performance difference. I mean, the better graphics are nice and all, but if that sacrifices, I don't know, having Vaseline on the screen, then that's too much of an ask. Because again, even if I disable anti-aliasing altogether in the new one, this soft look is still there. So well, why should you play on Steam Deck, the original versions or the enhanced editions? Well, the original versions don't have Steam Workshop or controller support. You can use Steam Input to emulate a mouse and keyboard in order to play those games on a gamepad, but it's nowhere as close as intuitive as using the new versions that are completely adapted to be used in a controller. They're also released on consoles. I think it was on Xbox and Nintendo Switch. It might not make sense because performance is not as good, but at the same time, the controller support just makes that much of a difference, at least when it comes to the Steam Deck. If you don't have a Steam Deck and don't mind playing those games with a mouse and keyboard, play the originals. They run significantly better. They don't have that cut content, but the visuals are worse as well. But the engine, again, remains the same. Just stacking up new features makes the game run significantly worse because it's the same engine with lots of updates, so gets significantly more demanding. So yeah guys, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see ya next time. Bye guys. Thanks for watching.